Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but you know what else I am not this week? Surprised. This was an episode where I feel like if you watched absolutely no other part of this entire season, this was the only episode you watched, you got a microcosm, summary explanation of literally everything that happened. No new information, nothing out of the box. It literally was just a summation of everything that we've experienced here for the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, like, from that end, it was anticlimactic.
Which is the theme of this episode, this whole season at this point. I know you're not there, but before we get into that debate, what are we doing here?
Thank you for that setup. Before we get into hometowns, we are here today talking with you about Jenn's season of The Bachelorette, which is season 21, episode 7, Hometowns. We go all over the United States and meet some great families, friends. And yeah, I'm excited to get into it today. Like we're down to the wire. We've only got a couple more episodes to go.
I'm going to debate that. We definitely did not go over the entire United States. We were very coastal. I mean, we were Connecticut down the street from us. We were in Washington State. We were in California.
Geography is not my strong suit.
We were in Texas. We were about as the outskirts of the country as can be. We did not get into Middle America. We didn't get into the Rust Belt. We got nowhere.
We got around.
We were definitely around the country. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll get into our somewhat nationwide tour. But before we get into all of that, please remember to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also hit subscribe if you have not done so already. To those of you who have, thank you. We are really close. We're really getting there. Every week we climb a little bit closer to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Again, we're really hoping to get there by the end of this season. Got a couple more weeks to go. So if you are enjoying this content or know someone that might, subscribe or send it to someone else and encourage them to subscribe too.
And please also remember to hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel. All right, so opening thoughts.
Definitely had there was a theme in this episode.
I'm so happy you mentioned the theme. Yes.
So like we know what message we should be taking home with us after this episode. So there was a very clear through line across all of the hometowns. So, you know, love when there's a theme. I love a good theme. I think that they definitely invested in benches. We saw a lot
I refuse to believe that everybody's house has a bench outside.
They love a bench debrief.
That being said, we do have a bench right outside the front of our house.
We do. But yeah, I mean, it's like I don't really have a lot to say, which maybe says a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about you? What are your thoughts?
So this sort of reminded me of our last vacation. Okay. So you were listening to several different audiobooks. And the thing that you know you all need to know about the audiobook she listens to is that they are really poorly written books. And like I'm sure the stories are fine. Maybe they're creative, maybe they have good twists, but the actual writing, the ability and the competency of the writers is pretty abysmal and poor. And so every time I would walk into a room, you'd be getting ready for dinner or something like that, you'd have it on. And what would always end up happening, you just hear this god awful prose of like, and you know, Cindy, she's an anxious person, or you know that Sarah, yeah, she's really got an anger problem. It's like, show me, don't tell me.
For reference, I was reading or listening to a lot of Ellen Hilderbrand books, and I'm a new Ellen Hilderbrand reader. So if you have any recommendations, please drop them below. Thank you.
Okay, well, so. You know, it very much, and I would comment, I'd walk in a room and be like, show me, don't tell me. Like, stop telling me about your characters. Show me through their actions or through their own, dialogue with other people, not sort of this narration thing. And what I have to say about the producers of this episode is that they got that memo. They showed the shit out of us. And let me tell you something, it was to the point of like, I was getting beat over the head with it to the point where I'm like, no, please stop. Like I am thoroughly concussed over here. I'm out of the game for good. I'm not going back in to take another step. Please. It's just like, come on, please stop hitting me over the head with this theme. And that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah. It was kind of like a rising crest. And then like once they got to the top, it was like a really quick like landslide down to the bottom. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
But one thing actually I did find rather interesting is that so in this episode, there was very much a subtle, covert, very sort of traditional conservative message that was a through line as well that I don't necessarily know that they intended, because let's be honest, ABC in 2024, not a super traditional focused, station. They're much more leaning into some of the new age modern stuff. But that theme was trust your family's judgment more than your own because they know better than you, which is obviously a kind of a callback to more of the some other cultures where you had more arranged marriages and stuff like that, where, and there's a reason why arranged marriages have a lower divorce rate. And there was this constant through line. You saw it with Marcus, you saw it with Jonathan, you saw it with Devin, and you saw it with Jeremy, though, in a very interesting way. All four of them came back and basically had that same thing of like, if you're not in with my family and the people closest to me, if they don't sign off on you, then it's just not going to work. And I do actually love that as a message and as a theme, because it is true that we as individuals are oftentimes not the best at understanding what's best for us. We don't have the experience, especially in our 20s, to really know what it takes long term and the qualities. And that's why it is so important to consider, your elders' opinions about this, and, the unbiased opinions of friends and family. I do think it's really valuable, and I don't think enough people actually consider that. That being said, I do think some people consider it too much, but we can get into that as we get into the episode. All right, so should we get into good date, bad date?
Yeah, we had 4 dates this episode.
No, we did not, because good date, bad date this week, we're only talking about the daytime activities. We're not talking about the family stuff because that's special. And we did not get a legitimate daytime activity with Marcus.
We didn't see one, but no. I want to add to the table, like, let's pretend that
Marcus and
the
Jenn
date
did a
the
date?
date is like going to a family barbecue or like a family get together. Like let's put that into the mix, because
sure,
I think that's still a relevant date to discuss.
Sure. Okay. All right. So the first date was Devin, and their daytime activity was the Good Guys Run. Really, it was just a run with his closest friends that they do. It's like a weekly run or whatever it is. And yeah, that's it. Go to a park or wherever, do a run, get a little sweaty, and that's a date. You get to meet the friends and get a workout in. What are you thinking as a date?
I think this is a little bit tough. I'm sort of in the middle here, because I feel like it's cool to do to like share your interest with someone. I mean, I'm always going to be partial to something that's active, as like someone that loves movement and was an athlete. But I think that this is a date that it's really hard to engage in a conversation with. Like, like you're trying to catch your breath, you're sweating. I mean, Devin was really sweating. And it's hard to, like, it's so uncomfortable to talk like this and run and think about breathing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a hard date, but I like the idea of it. Like, I want to share with you a really big part of my life. I want to share with you this community that I'm a part of. And so I think like it makes sense as the middle of a date, like having something, but sort of, I guess, as he did, you have something before, you have this activity in the middle, and then you have like kind of get together after, which is pretty common for a run club. So, I'd give it like a C plus, B minus, because I feel like the bulk of the activity itself is really difficult to actually engage during.
Yeah, you're way higher on this than I am. I hate this as date one. I don't feel like if you are meeting friends and or family for the first time, it's similar to a first date with the individual. Like, you don't want to be running around. You want to be able to engage. And so they all got to say a quick hello, and then they went off to a run. There's no way that they could learn anything meaningful. They couldn't offer any opinions. And I know that really wasn't the purpose of the run. That time was coming later with the family. But for all the reasons that you did not like it, I didn't like it either. There's no engaging really easily. You're not really going to learn much. I mean, maybe how competitive are they? What's their ability to just tenacity to just keep going when they're exhausted? Sure, but like they were only going for a mile run around a flat paved road. Come on now. So I hated this. This was a D minus for me.
Wow.
You also didn't factor in like they're getting sweaty, and like, okay, they're in gym wear, and like guy gym wear is not cute. Girl gym wear can be cute, but like not when you're actually doing the activity that you're supposed to be doing in that gym wear. So I thought it was just a strong D minus for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we go on to down the street, good old Jeremy, he goes to Stu Leonard's. So I want to talk about Stu Leonard's here for a second here, right? Because Jenn was talking about all the crazy nonsense that goes on at Stu Leonard's, and I was legitimately a little bit confused because I was like, are you telling me that your grocery store doesn't have talking milk cartons? Like, what kind of grocery store do you go to? Your grocery store doesn't have mooing cows? And then
dancing avocados,
right? And then I got to thinking like, okay, I am originally from Massachusetts, and I did not grow up with a Stu Leonard's, and I kind of remember you brought me to Stu Leonard's for the first time. I'd actually been living in the Connecticut, New York area for, at that point, maybe 2 years, maybe even longer than 2 years. And I had not been to Stu Leonard's. And I was remembering back the first time that I went to Stu's for the first time. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm fairly certain like I was like as like wide-eyed and like, where the hell am I?
Yeah. It was so bizarre to watch like as an outsider, because I grew up in the lower Fairfield County area. And so like going to Stu Leonard's is a field trip that we go to in elementary school. It's something I grew up doing. They have a petting zoo. Like it's so kid friendly.
I'm so mad that they didn't show the petting zoo.
Well, I don't know what time of year they want if the petting zoo is open.
That's fair. Yeah.
But like it didn't occur to me like how much a part of my childhood it was until I watched it on TV and I was like, oh, this is fucking weird.
It's like,
because it's never really registered to me that like there are these like really bizarre elements of this grocery store. It's always just been like, oh yeah, that's just here. Like I'm here for the donuts and I'm here for the bagels and I'm here
those
for the
pop chips. You love those pop chips.
Yeah, the like popped rice cakes. Oh, I want to go to Stu so bad. And so that it was like so jarring. I was like, this feels like a fever dream. It's wild. So all of that to say, I mean, apparently I took you there as part of my hometown experience. But what do you think about whether it's Stu Leonard's or just like a store that is so central to your community's like personality? Like, what do you think about that as a date?
It's so interesting that you ask it in that way because, okay, anybody who watched that would think, oh, these are like, you're in the sticks and this is like Hickland and like, where are you? This is like middle America weird. Like there's got to be farm country everywhere. This is literally dead smack in the center of the wealthiest county in the entire country. There are hedge funds dotted all along around it. Like when I say that this is like the epicenter of wealth is directly like within like 15 miles of basically that, like there are more hedge funds, more millionaires and more billionaires that live within 15 miles of Stu Leonard's than any other place in the country. And you would never think about this. When you talk about the culture of a community, it's like, it's almost jarring because you almost like, it's like, how could that be the culture of Fairfield County? It's wild. The whole thing is wild. But to your question, I actually love it. I mean, Stu's is to your point, like, it's an institution. It's not a store. It is like a hallmark. It's something that you just know about, you go to. And yes, there are plenty of other grocery stores that don't have dancing milk cartons and you can find them if you want to, but like there's, you go to get your Christmas trees at Stu's. You go to get your pumpkins at Halloween at Stu's, I mean,
great soft serve.
You go there for ice cream, you go to that, like, it's such a, it's a landmark in so many ways. And I think it's something that everybody in the community has been to, has normalized in some weird way. And so I do like it for that. It also is just kind of fun. It's goofy. It's fun. And even Jen's like, I'm going to a grocery store. Like, what the heck am I? But if anybody who's ever walked through Stu's, like, they get it. It's like, you could spend hours in there and not buy a thing. Just whatever. And do you remember, your brother took your nephew to Stu's, and that's how your nephew is now scared of animals, right? Because there's
the cow,
like, so there's one of the cows and you come around the thing and it's timed and it will like suddenly like flip out or whatever. And so your brother brought your nephew and was like waiting. He's like, this is going to be so much fun. And then scared the shit out of him. And now he like won't go back into the store. And like, he was afraid of like animals for the longest time. Yeah. Yeah. All because of Stu's.
So what's your grade for this date?
I think it's actually cute. I don't think I'm like, hey, I'm taking you to a grocery store is the whole date, but as a component to a date, I mean, it doubles as a meal. You're going to eat a lot there. And dessert, you get ice cream. You know, like it. I like it conceptually. B plus.
It's like the true definition of a hometown date, as evidenced by the fact that, again, you were new to me, and like this was just part of my hometown experience. Like when you're bringing someone home, like that's not on a show, like that's just where you bring them. So for me, it felt like just so genuine. So I grade it maybe in like the B range for me.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Lacrosse.
Yeah, for all the same reasons of running, I hated this. I mean, I get it's a little bit more personal and intimate because it's just the two of you, but like, to me, it was just this is a D plus, maybe a C. Maybe I'll give it a C minus because it's a little bit better than the running date because at least here it's just the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt a little bit mixed on this one. Same feeling of you of like, okay, we've done this before, and he kind of framed it as we're picking up where we left off, but it didn't feel like where they played was particularly significant to him. And so I was missing that like personal element.
Was it his college, his high school, like, you know, something? Yeah.
So I'm gonna put it in the same like C range. Like it's something that they have in common, and Jenn said like I could see us doing this together, doing this with our future family. Like we've bumped around with volleyball in our front yard and had fun with that. Like, is that
not a date? When we bump around in the front yard with volleyball, not a date.
No, that's fair. But it is an activity that we do together and enjoy.
Yeah, because you refuse to play volleyball on vacation with me.
Okay, and last up we have going to like a family barbecue, family like backyard party.
Yeah, I made the mistake. We had been dating maybe a month, and I took a girl to my brother's barbecue. It was a disaster. Not a fan. My ex-girlfriend showed up, so that contributed. But yeah, no. Look, I obviously I like this better than the running because at least you have time to engage, you know, a little bit and stuff like that. It depends on how deep you are. Like, there's obviously not a first date, not a second date, not even a third date. It would have to be a really great first two dates to do it on a third date. But like, you know, yeah, you get to see how they interact. But again, I don't necessarily think that this is like really a date. When you're meeting other people, the focus is more on them, you know, and less on it's how are they going to interact within your circles and less about how the two of you are going to interact. And I don't care how you're going to interact with my family until I know how I feel about you. Yeah. Right. And I know that at least I'm on board, and I think, you know, we share values and stuff like that. And maybe at that point now I need to see how you interact with the family and friends, you know, in the case of like a Jonathan and a Marcus, to like help me get over that hump just to make sure. Right. But I think that it's got to be deep into, and deep's the wrong word, but you got to be at least 5 dates in before this really adds value, I think.
So I could see it in one of two different ways. I could see it to your point of like, okay, you're more serious and you are bringing your girlfriend home to like meet your family and friends, and you're like introducing them like when you're quite serious. So like the pressure's on for the person you're dating. On the other side, I could see as an early on, like second, third date, making it even way more casual and saying, why don't you bring a couple friends to like meet all of my friends? And like, it's more of like a group hang rather than like you're on the spot here. You have to make your rounds and meet everybody. I think seeing if how your date or whatever, your significant other engages, interacts with your friends, their friends, all of that stuff is not a bad, not if it's strictly family, but if it's like more friends than family, I think that's also a good use of a date like this.
She's saying this because the first like 2 or 3 times I tried to meet up with her after we met for the first time, she would not meet me if it wasn't with all of her friends. So there I am just showing up.
You're a stranger.
What's the story we mean? We saw each other every Friday on the train.
And never spoke.
We spoke. How did I get your number?
One time.
We spoke twice before we met up for the first time. And yeah, she would always be like, "Oh yeah, me and my friends are going to the
Me and my
bar."
friends are out. Come meet us.
No, not exactly. But I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to trivia at the bar." Like, one, I don't belong in a bar. Two, I definitely don't belong doing trivia.
I think inviting someone out to play trivia with your friends is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Not as like a first date though.
Yeah, fine. But that's, hey, you take me how you can get me.
Yeah, well, what can I say? I took you how I could get you. All right, so shall we get into the actual dates themselves?
Yes.
The full episode. All right, so we start off with Devin. We've already talked about his run. I didn't think that there was anything particularly interesting about his run. The second part of the date, they go and he introduces her to his dog, which is cute. While they're playing with the dog, he is prepping her for what to expect with his family.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, we've heard a lot from Devin about his family and sort of they keep using the term unconventional. And we met the family, and I don't know, call me crazy, but it didn't feel that unconventional. But before we get to the family itself, anything interesting about the dynamics? With the dog,
I mean,
or anything?
It was one of those things where it's like, okay, like cool to know that both Jenn and Devin like are into running. Like, didn't know that. Didn't know Devin had a dog. Didn't know, like, good to know. Jen's a big animal lover. It's like, okay, like compatibility is showing. And so I thought like that was like really the only main thing. Like, Devin's got a big group of friends. Like, he seems
not
like
surprising. He's
like,
got a giant group of friends.
A well-liked guy. Like, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of cool. I do, again, like the idea of it being a community activity. I hated the shirts.
Yeah, you're not too cheesy for you.
Too cheesy for me. But like, I thought it was cute. It was unexpected. I was not expecting that from Devin's hometown. So, yeah. So I nothing like significant to add there, other than like, all right, like two little things noted, two other compatibility boxes to check.
Yeah. Same thing. I didn't think that there was anything new or particularly interesting here, so I'm happy to just shoot right on into the actual family activity. We meet a bunch of his family, his mother, father, stepfather, siblings, stuff like that. It was a decent sized group. Now, what I will say here is one of the things that I always look for in hometowns is, I have a vision of what this person's family is likely going to be like based on what I see, right? And
of the individual
on the show. And what I like to see is like, how far off is my prediction? If my prediction is far off, then it tells me like maybe the person is being performative, maybe the family's being performative, maybe there's some
edit is strong.
That maybe the edit is strong, like how far off.
Yeah, how consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would say that I feel about 99% accurate with Devin. His family is exactly what I was expecting. Really an interesting, like you felt like it was a loving family. You felt like it was an accepting family. What I loved about the family was the awareness and the recognition that they've made mistakes. They weren't particularly defensive. They seemed to really own it. And it explains a lot of Devin's character and kind of how he is and why he is the way he is. And I thought his family was lovely for what they are. And yeah, it
was a very self-aware family.
Yes.
Yeah. And to your point, like, I think that's where Devin gets his self-awareness too. Like, we didn't see the dad try to shift his narrative. We saw the mom lean into like her experience of, what did she say? It took me a while to find like my love story. Like, and I worried about what I was modeling for my kids. Like, we see her think about like the role that she played as a mother and also an individual, like as a single woman trying to navigate relationships and thinking about the impact on her kids. Like, I think, again, that shows self-awareness and insight. We also see the dad basically say, like, we definitely didn't get it right. And we see Devin and his dad be able to have a conversation that...
And like, seemingly a decent relationship.
But clearly in the way that Devin engaged with his mom, much closer relationship there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the core takeaway for me is, you live you learn what you live, right? And what's modeled for you is what your prior is going to typically be. And it takes a lot to break from your priors. And what we see here is that Devin came from a family of self-awareness and came from a family that isn't going to your point, going to try and recreate narratives. They own their mistakes. And it explains a lot when we look at the dynamic between him and Sam M. When Sam M. and Devin, we get into it, how the two of them, the differences in how they engage there. And it just makes so much sense. And it tells you that, Devin might be young. He might not be the most mature person in the world, right? But you see he's got all of the right upbringing and he has all of the right role models in his life that he's going to be a successful person, and because he has the right foundation grounding, despite being unconventional, having made mistakes.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you referenced that, because that's one thing about this show or this particular season that I feel pretty frustrated with. It's that they are really villainizing divorce, or utilizing this term of unconventional family, broken home. They've called it a couple of times. And I'm not at all suggesting that divorce doesn't impact children or families. Of course it does. But you're not doomed. And if you have individuals, or at least one individual within that couple that can be secure and that is, again, self-aware, that does their own work, that is able to navigate this, with some intentionality, that it can still result in this way. Like when divorce happens, it doesn't automatically lead to an unhealthy dynamic or unhealthy upbringing. And I think we need to try to destigmatize that.
I don't think destigmatizing is really the problem. I think it's getting parents to understand, if you get divorced, that you still have an obligation to your child. I've told this story on the podcast before, but I had a friend of mine, more an acquaintance, but he had gotten divorced, and he had it was like a 5-6-year-old, and he every Mother's Day, every birthday, all the occasions, he would always take his son to the store, and they would go and get flowers and everything for his mother's, his ex-wife. And it didn't matter how upset he was or whatever, he would always go and he would treat her with the utmost respect. And when people would ask him, why do you do that? In this particular case, she had cheated on him, so he had reason to want to be upset. And he said, because at the end of the day, I am modeling how to be a proper man to my son, and I need my son to know that this isn't his fault. That's what we need to get. I don't think it's necessarily a stigmatization issue. I think it's the adults aren't doing the right thing after they get divorced, and letting their own anger cloud.
Fair. No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, we've talked about this on this podcast before. And yeah, one of the most damaging things about divorce is the parents' reaction to one another during it, because kids do tend to internalize, as we see, right, with Jenn. Jenn is a prime example of this. The kids tend to internalize that, although the adults know, no, this is about us, the kid thinks, no, it's about me. And they start to internalize that. And if we have a mother who talks shit about the father in front of the kid or to the kid, then what's the kid going to believe, other than, I'm part of my dad too, so this must be true about me.
Both of them. So the 50% of me that's him must be bad.
Yeah,
vice versa. Yeah.
And so yes, thank you for the suggestion on my point around destigmatizing divorce. Yeah, because that's really what it is. It's I maintain that divorce is not the thing that is causing the damage. It's the way that people are navigating divorce.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yes.
Pivoting just slightly, and this is really highlighting Devin's mom's parenting here. She asked Devin.
She's a sweetheart.
She was great. She asked Devin something I don't believe I've ever heard a parent ask a contestant before. When she was meeting with him kind of one-on-one, she said, I want to make sure your heart is in the right place and that your intentions are pure. Sort of giving him the check of are you here for the right reasons, essentially? And I don't recall,
because everybody's giving the interrogation.
They here for the right reasons? And I thought that was to your point about, raising a man or raising a son or whatever. I thought that was a really nice check that I don't ever think I've seen before.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me a little bit of my upbringing, where a lot of my friends had parents that they would always immediately assume that their kid was in the right and the other kid was in the wrong. My mother always grew up assuming that me and my brothers were the ones in the wrong, and we had to prove that we were in the right before she would take our side. And like, that's pretty. I mean, look. There are justifiable reasons why that she took that stance, and I'm not saying she was wrong for doing that. But I do think that it does mold you differently as a child going through that. And I kind of it was kind of a callback to me of seeing Devin's mom. That's just like checking him, saying like, you are fallible. I know I'm your mother, and I'm supposed to love you, and I'm supposed to support you, and I'm supposed to back you up. But I also know that you are fallible and you are human. And guess what? It's my obligation to continue to parent you and to continue to make sure that you are doing the right thing and living up to your own potential, even if you are now into your 20s and you are an adult. And I loved it. I'm happy you brought it up. I there was very little about the interaction with his mother, both with Jenn and with Devin, that I didn't like.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we see like the introduction of the major theme of our episode. Devin's been talked basically the entire episode about how he doesn't want to be wrong. He doesn't want to tell someone that he loves them if she's going to tell someone else. Like, he's feeling reserved. He's wanting to hold back. And then we hear, his mom encourage him to just tell Jenn. And he listens to his mom and does it.
Yeah. What I will say is that Jenn has been more vocal about her feelings to Devin than anybody else. And the way she responds, the way she reciprocates both verbally and physically with him. I think you had said something like, they really, really want to sleep together.
I wrote like, they're really into each other. And then at one point I had said to you, like, wow, they really want to have sex.
Yeah. Seemed that way. Look, I think leading the episode with the Devin date was a bit problematic from a production standpoint, because it was so obvious that he had hit a home run. It was so obvious that they have a great connection. It was so obvious that she would fit in great to the family, and that there was nothing bad about this entire date. Everything was smooth. Yeah. Everything felt easy. Everything felt like it just worked and meshed, and it was basically all downhill from here.
Well, I don't know about that.
For Jenn, I think it was all downhill for Jenn from here.
I think what you're pointing out about Jenn being really demonstrative verbally and physically with Devin is such a great example of essentially, again, this theme of vulnerability begets vulnerability. Devin has also been the most consistent, the most upfront from first group date one, right? Yeah. Like, he has been unwavering in his care and affection for and with Jenn. And so, like, of course, Jen's going to get there with him faster, but also feel more comfortable to be vulnerable with him too. And that's essentially like what all of these parents were saying to their kids this episode is like, you gotta just take the risk, be vulnerable. You'll never know. And she'll never know. And it just reminded me of that Michael Jordan quote, like, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And that seemed to be the big takeaway, is like, take the shot. Yeah, you might not make it, but you will 100% not make it if you never do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's move on to the next.
Jeremy. All right, so let me just say, this was so relatable to me. We'll get into why in a second, but this date was super relatable.
There was a mother that didn't like the girl you brought home?
That just scratching the surface. So yeah, no, I mean, look, the Stu Leonard's date, I thought it went well. Obviously, they seemed to have a good time. The fact that they just randomly run into his aunt, been there.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
But it's also just so like expected. Like, the amount of times we run into your family,
I
like
know,
all
at
the
grocery store.
At the grocery store all the time.
A couple of things though, just to note. She did go into this hometown saying, like, I chose Jeremy to be my last one-on-one date last episode because I was so sure of how I was feeling about him. And again, I'm like,
don't get it.
Flabbergasted a bit. She'd also said, Jeremy keeps saying we're going shopping. That's an unfair sell of what it's not a lie, but it's an unfair sell. So I just, wanted to note that. But what she also says is, like, we have a lot of fun together, and it's a lot of fun in games, but like, there is an engagement at the end of this. And so, like, let's get down to business, essentially. So that's like how the mindset backdrop that she is walking into this date with.
There was certainly no other family meeting where the people there were as skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear that his family, skeptical is not the right word, they were not into this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty obvious that they were going through the motions, they were supporting their son, but at the end of the day, they weren't into this. They didn't want to really participate in this. It was so obvious. And it shows. It shows that they don't believe in the process. They don't, and they have skepticism about why people are on this show in the first place.
Well, the mom flat out said when Jenn was announced as the Bachelorette, and she said what she was looking for in a man, that's not Jeremy.
Yeah, which, I mean, that is a prior to come in with right off the bat. Is you've heard what this person wants, and your son is not it, and now your son's at hometowns. I mean, Jenn was basically doomed at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I do have one comment here. Really, I guess it's a question. Is there any Bachelorette in the history of this franchise with a worse poker face than Jenn? I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to watch because like she'll hear something she doesn't like and it just rips across her face.
Yeah,
and
she like bites her lip. She kind of
Yeah, there's no poker face. There's no hiding what she's feeling. It is just all on her sleeve. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like really hard because you just know, oh, that was a gut punch. And it's like the person talking to her just keeps talking. It's like could you pause, moderate, let her catch up a little bit. And the 3 dates after Devin were all dates where she just kept getting some gut punches. Mm-hmm. And this one in a lot of ways was the hardest because there was not a single person in that family who was telling her what she wanted to hear, mm-hmm. what she needed to hear.
Well, I think it was what she needed to hear.
Well, but here's the problem is that they were out of sync with what Jeremy was saying. Jeremy was saying one thing and he has not been vocal enough. He has not gotten deep enough, and that's fine. And Jenn and he seem to be on different pages about how expressive they've been. Right? I think we can agree there. So Jenn is seeking rather than seek from Jeremy directly, like what she's looking for in terms of expressiveness and seeing if he can get there. She's now have an opportunity to go and find the family. And so she's seeking it from the family. And the family already has a prior that she's not the right fit for him and they're not interested. Mm-hmm. And so they have no qualms about just crashing, her carriage or whatever, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, and they just, every one of them does. And you could just see it just basically really sets her into a spiral. And Jeremy, again, not reading the room, he's like, oh yeah, I feel great. I think this date went fantastic. And meanwhile, we're all like, we see her face. We see the conversation she's having. He wasn't privy to that. But I also wonder, like, what did his family say? Like when he watches this back and he sees the conversations that his family had with them, is he going to be like, Mom, what the fuck? Mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. Sis, what was that? Right? And that's really the question I have is I'm not sure how much, I don't think honesty is the right word, how much disclosure, we'll say, there was, because it didn't feel like anybody in this entire date was on the same page. It didn't feel like the family was in line with Jeremy. It didn't feel like Jeremy was in line with Jenn.
I think that's a good assessment. And I think with Jeremy, I mean, I really like him.
He's grown on me. So I really like Jeremy. Yeah.
And I think the thing that like is really difficult to read through a screen is how much of what he says is sarcasm. Because I think that like in our group chat, a Revive group chat about this episode, like some of the people were like, oh, he's so confident. And it's like, well, yeah, I think there's partially him being confident, but I also think he's like just deadpanning. And like even the way that he was like, not like, this is great. Like maybe there is like a lack of self-awareness or like an overconfidence. But like, I also think there is a layer of like, just like a sarcastic deadpan humor that might not read here. Like the way that he engaged with his mom was so like felt so real, like where he was like, all right, Mom, like it was like he didn't say that per se, but like that was the vibe. And so there was a part of me that's like he almost like wasn't taking he was one person that said he didn't put as much value or weight on his parents or his he
gave like
families.
The token answer that he's supposed to give.
Yeah, I think he was like, all right, like I'm good with where I'm at. Like I don't need that. That was the vibe. Like he was there to kind of check the box.
I relate a lot to Jeremy. I could see myself being in that exact same situation, and experiencing the exact same thing. And it would be the same thing. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm interested to know what their opinions are, but
Mhm.
I don't really value their opinions. But I know I'm supposed to say I value it for the sake of this show
Yeah.
because that's, I'm supposed to seem like a family guy. And this doesn't mean I don't have a great relationship, right? Like I have a great relationship with my parents,
Mhm.
right? But I also don't give a flying fuck what they think about you. Like
Mhm.
they could love you, they could hate you. It's not going to change whether or not I decided to marry you or not, right? And that's, I think Jeremy is a very similar character.
Mhm.
Jen, on the other hand, and this is important, Jen values that family connection because
Well,
it's
she
not
values
something.
approval as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, because again, Jeremy seems to have come from a more stable, more kind of intact family structure. What was the term Devin used? Unconventional, a more conventional family structure, and thus he's got more, of a stable view of things, right? And Jen obviously doesn't, and so I do think that that's an interesting dynamic when you look at how they viewed this, where she clearly put so much weight on these things like, oh, he might not be ready. I don't know. And like that just really set her into a spiral.
Yeah.
And she really had a hard time with that. Meanwhile, Jeremy's like, what do I care about their opinions? That was
Yeah.
totally the vibe. And it was so interesting because it's clearly they didn't have enough time together
Mhm.
for Jen to really understand his dynamic and
Right.
his view of family. And that doesn't mean he's not close, but like what he values as part of family is different than what she values
Right.
in the connection to family.
Well, and I think it does beg the question, and this is, I guess, is something that I'm still questioning for myself, is Jeremy didn't put a lot of stock, a lot of weight into his family's acceptance of Jen, but Jen put a lot of stock into Jeremy's acceptance of Jen, of her.
Yeah.
And so, like, is that something that Jen should just let go? Or is it actually important for Jen to feel like she is accepted into this family?
This feels like a personal question, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm on Jen's side here.
Yeah,
Not
look,
side, but like I more relate to Jen, and like, yeah, like I totally get and respect your relationship with your family, and I appreciate that it doesn't matter to you their assessment of me, but like it matters to me.
Mhm.
And it definitely makes like my integration into your family like more challenging and causes challenges between us. So like I think it's really tough.
Yeah, 11 years ago, I would have said that you are wrong and Jen is wrong. As I become an older, I said 11 years ago.
I know. Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah. As I've gotten older, I am, I understand, I think more that, we are who we are and we value what we value. And just because I think something is stupid and I think something doesn't matter, doesn't mean it doesn't matter to you.
Mhm.
And this is probably the single biggest contention we've had in our entire marriage, is the fact that I just don't care what other people think at all. It doesn't matter if they're family, friends, whatever. Like I just don't care, and I just can't be bothered, and I don't even want to. I'm not even interested in their opinion unless I ask for it. And you do care, not about everybody, a select handful of people, specifically family. You care about their opinions. And yeah, I do think that there has to be a bridge and a middle ground there where, because, you care about what you care about,
Mhm.
and I care about what I care about, and they're not going to be the same. And that doesn't minimize, one of them can't be minimized.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that's one of the most important things I've learned in our 11 years of being married is that just because I think something is silly doesn't mean that it's not important to you. And so, yeah, I think Jeremy and Jen would have a very difficult time bridging that. It's
Mhm.
not impossible, right? But
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and they just don't have enough of a foundation to even figure out how to navigate
exactly,
that.
yeah.
And it's moot because he's going home. But two things happened on this date that I just like quickly want to also highlight. One is, Jen asks the mom, "Do you think Jeremy is ready for an engagement?" And she says, and again, this is an answer that I don't recall hearing recently or that much, I'll say. She responds saying, "I don't know. I don't know you. And I can't." And I think Jeremy's readiness for an engagement is dependent on who he's with.
Mhm.
And I feel like we usually get just a blanket yes or no. And so I appreciated
Follow the script.
Yeah, I appreciated that here because it is more nuanced than, yes, he's so ready to get engaged.
Yeah, I just think that this family does not care about this show, is not interested, and they're doing it because they're supposed to do it to support
Yeah.
their son, and they I don't think they care about the script. You could almost like peek behind the curtain and you could just see like production being okay, blah blah, and they're like, get out of my face.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's also like a Northeast, like
it is
Fairfield County thing. Like there was that vibe here.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing that I appreciated was, you know how I feel about the phrase falling in love.
Yes.
So
means nothing.
But yes, and Jeremy actually defined for us what falling meant.
I missed that. Okay.
And so he said, I'm falling in love with Jenn. And it's as though maybe a producer asked him, what does that mean? And he said, for me, falling is I love being with her and I can't imagine not being with her. And that's the closest we've ever got to someone being able to put words into that, like to describe that like seemingly meaningless phrase. And so I just wanted to note that because I've been so critical of that phrase. And again, want to credit Jeremy to having some awareness of what saying those words actually meant to him.
Yeah. And it just wasn't following the script of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about here before we move on to Jonathan?
No, not really. I did kind of feel when he said that he was falling for her that it was a little bit of like I'm cashing in my chip last, ditch effort.
Yeah.
It didn't feel authentic.
And she didn't reciprocate in any meaningful way. The only one of the four that she did not get any sort of real major reciprocation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt too little too late. It felt like he was way on at this point. You and I have been on the record for quite a while. We thought this is going down to Devin and Marcus. And there was nothing in this date that suggests, I mean, this was, I don't, whatever metric you want to use, I think it's hard to say that this wasn't the worst date of the four.
Yes. Yeah, fine. Minus Stu's.
Minus two. The family portion was by far. Yeah. All right. So Jonathan.
Yep.
They play lacrosse. He preps her for the family. They have a conversation on the lacrosse court field, whatever it is, and then they go in to meet the family.
Yeah. Still talking about the ex.
Everybody's
talking about the ex.
Tired of the ex. I'm tired. Jonathan. I like Jonathan, but this is not a good edit. This is not. It's just like, dude. Just like stop talking about the ex.
Well, it just the note that I wrote down is that breakups can really affect the family.
Sure.
And so like I think we see, especially from Jonathan's brother, like there's an overprotection now, like after seeing him get hurt. There's a weariness on his part, or wariness rather, of like letting someone in again. And so it must have been pretty bad.
But I mean, if you have to talk about the ex this much, then you're not ready to date. I mean, I don't know how else to say that.
Well, that to me seemed very clear.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you are not ready, you're not ready. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with not being ready. Commitment and relationships and marriage are a big deal. And you should only do it if you're ready. And you should soul search before you get down on one knee and make that commitment. It's a wonderful thing that I want everyone to experience, but you got to be ready. And he's just not ready. And it's so apparent. I'm tired of hearing about the ex. I'm as tired of hearing about his ex as I am tired of hearing about Jen's toxic ex, right? There's one narrative, there's one through line here. And I like Jonathan. He seems like a cool guy. He's handsome as hell. He's, freaking muscles for days. I mean, what's not to like? But then he just keeps just like letting off this just aura of just like kind of patheticness at times. And it's just so sad because I don't think he's like this pathetic guy. And so I just think he's got to go get his head straightened out from the breakup and not try to jump in and get married to Jenn. I think that is a fool's errand. Yeah,
I agree. I think seeing the way the family reacted to the breakup was what made it clear for me. Like, okay, this was pretty bad. He doesn't seem ready, and he needs some more time.
Yeah, what I really thought was the brother's reaction, which I was annoyed with the entire brother interaction.
The brother sister-in-law thing was really interesting.
Well, because she was driving the ship and she's the sister-in-law and the brother is sort of like, so the thing it was really annoying with the
they did not seem on the same page.
No, at all. But so the brother is basically like, oh, I basically got engaged after, 3 dates and I got married. We've been together for all these years and things are fantastic, but you can't do it. And I can't really articulate why.
Well,
And it was like it was weird.
Well, she said she sold their story as like, so when you know,
Yeah.
you can do it quickly. And he was like, yeah, we did that, but that was really fast, and this is really fast. And so I feel like I was like, oh,
maybe they're telling different. Maybe they have different views of how strong their marriage is, perhaps,
right, or like,
or how difficult it's been.
Yeah, right, yeah. So that was like, I was like, ooh, you are telling on yourselves.
Yeah, you are not on the same page. That's a fair point. Yeah, marriages are just one compromise after another compromise after another compromise, and the courting process that goes on for a not super lengthy, but a more than 3 weeks is so that you've had enough time to figure out if you like what the degrees of compromise are going to be. And that's like the biggest, aspect of figuring out, like, do we share values? And because the more values you share, it means the less you have to compromise, right? That's why core values are so important, because it means you're going to fall into conflict less. And when you do fall into conflict, you oftentimes have less less difference to actually bridge, right? And one of you has to sacrifice less, or you both have to sacrifice less. That's why core values are so important. And it's hard to determine how much you're aligned in only 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever. And that's why you need a courting process that is 6 months to a year or something like that. I think after a year, if you still don't know, then you have either you don't and you haven't admitted it. You don't share values and you can't admit it yet, or you just haven't done the work to figure it out, which is also telling on yourself.
Right. And along with that, along with the preoccupation with the ex, we also have Jonathan, who seems to put the most weight into his family's opinion. It's as though he was saying, tell me how I should feel.
Yes.
About her.
And this is where I said before, we should value the elder opinion and third-party opinions more that aren't blinded by our own biases, but it can go too far. And Jonathan is an example where it just went too far, where he doesn't actually know how he feels, and he's looking for an external force to tell him how to feel, is what it seems like to me. And like, that doesn't work, right?
No.
Like that doesn't work at all. Like, you have to feel something. You have to be grounded in your own belief, and then these other people are supporting your belief, or they're popping your bubble. But at the end of the day, you have to share in the core belief if you're going to be with this person. And he's more interested in just having somebody else tell him. That it reminds me so much of like, of staff. When you run a business, and you have some independent contractors and you have some employees, and you very quickly realize, like, it takes a very special kind of person to be an independent contractor, because the reality is, as much as people say they don't want it, most people just want to be told when to show up and what tasks to do and what time to go home and what's expected of them. And that's just it. Like, they just want to be told, and they don't want the freedom. They say they want the flexibility and freedom, but when they get it, they don't know how to handle it. And so, nope, just
most people are really bad at it.
Yeah. And that's sort of like what it feels like here is he's like, I don't know if this is the right girl. I don't know if I'm supposed to marry her. Somebody just tell me.
Yeah. And then he asks his mom, can you, is this a person you see me with long term? And she says, absolutely yes. And then he's like, all right, then.
Yeah,
Let's do it. I'm falling in love with you, Jen. It was
deep into the pool. Here I dive.
Yeah, it was jarring.
Yeah.
And Jen reciprocates his falling in love.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's just been like, and look, there's a lot of reasons why a girl would like Jonathan.
Of course.
And he just seems like one of those guys where on paper you're like, I'm supposed to like this guy.
Yeah.
And he just feels to me like she just wants so bad to be into him more than she is. And she's trying to force it, but like, it's not there. We've been saying for weeks it's not there, but like, she really wants it, and it makes sense why she's trying to force it. But
listen, I have a lot of empathy for these men, and this will be a nice segue for us to get into Marcus, but it must be so confusing. Like, I understand why they're all so unsure of how they're feeling. Like, this is crazy. Like, objectively speaking, there's so many emotions at play here. How can you possibly tease out, like, what is it, this experience? What is it about this person? What is it about, like, the environment? Like, It's so hard. And it was making me think of an interview I heard once about with Susie Evans, who was essentially the winner of Clayton season.
Mhm.
And she had, it was a whole drama. Rachel and Gabby crying on the stairs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It was a big to do. But anyway, he ended up really wanting to pick Susie. Susie had essentially a hard boundary about him having sex with other people in the fantasy suites.
Seems reasonable.
And he ended up having sex, and she was like, "Oh, I think I'm not comfortable with that. I'm out." But basically, is like
Sure.
very, very, very paraphrased version of what happened. So he ends up essentially like getting together with Susie, and they have a relationship. And post breakup, I think she might have been on Nick Viall's podcast, and she was saying essentially like, you really are like needing to get to know each other again, because you start to realize like you have this feeling of like, wow, this person really sees me, this person really knows me, and you don't realize that production at times has fed them certain things like Susie really likes X, like you should go and do that for her, give that to her. And in her experience, it's like, wow, he really heard me, he really listened to me, he's so intuitive. And so it's not until you actually get together and you don't have all that the extra hands in the pot that you really get to see like what really is actually there. And that was something I hadn't like actually considered before. And so like, again, you're carrying all of like, that's a good example of like a potential fear of how much do I really know this person?
Yeah.
And when you're making a, getting down on one knee, promise for forever commitment, especially with all of these broken homes, it puts extra pressure to get it right. And so again, I have a lot of empathy. Like this must be so confusing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so the most confused,
most
challenged.
I mean, Marcus, we like
my
Marcus
boy.
so
Marcus
much.
needs therapy in the biggest way.
Yeah, look,
he's really struggling.
He's struggling. I think we like Marcus a lot. We have tons of respect for Marcus. The takeaway from this episode is that Marcus is not ready for a relationship.
He's wounded.
He is less ready than Jonathan is, and it's not close. I've said many times, and I firmly believe this, that the most important thing for a man to have in his life is purpose, right? And what you see in Marcus is somebody who has gone out of his way his entire life to find purpose. That's why he served in the military so much, and you just see this constant, kind of through line with him in that, we know he was abandoned, and, we know that has wounded his self-esteem and
sense of self.
Exactly. And you see him leaning into purpose, because in finding purpose, in having purpose, we find value. And this is true of men broadly speaking. It's the single worst thing that you can do to a man is take away his purpose, right? And with Marcus, it feels to me, in the statements he's saying, things like the thing I want to be the most is a father. He wants to be a husband. He's trying to sort of find his purpose, and he's trying to recreate his own narrative and fix the mistakes of his parents and stuff like that. But the problem is that he hasn't yet done the work to care for himself. And there's this really interesting line, right, where you don't want to wait until you're ready to do things, because you'll never be ready. And there's the maturity and the growth that you have by jumping into things you're not ready, whether that's a job, whether that's having a kid before you're ready, financially or whatever, or getting married before you're ready. I certainly was not ready when we got married. And it forced me to grow up very quickly and take on responsibilities, and forced me to grow up in ways that I wasn't expecting. But there is a certain event horizon that you do actually need to be at, right? Whereas in order for you to gain the value of the responsibility and finding the purpose and taking on the responsibility, you do have to be at a certain point, mentally and maturity wise. And Marcus just clearly is not there. He's clearly so far behind. He doesn't know what he needs for himself. He hasn't done the work to really kind of fix himself at this point. And that's what's scary to me, is that he's just, if he gets married now, I have very little faith that it's going to end up being a successful in however you want to gauge success, because there's so much work he still has to do on himself.
Can I make one semantic adjustment for you?
Sure. Yes.
You had said the phrase fix himself. And I want to be mindful of the word choice there,
Sure.
because Marcus is not a toy that's broken. He views himself as that, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I just, in terms of being protective of Marcus and also like trying to pave the way for the work that needs to be done on his behalf or for himself, like, he is not broken. He does not need to be fixed. And I know that that's not what you're saying. I'm more speaking to Marcus in that, or to anyone who feels like they are broken. That's like, you have people that might have dropped you maybe, but like, you are not broken. And so I think that's a really important distinction.
Okay. And in terms of his readiness
for
marriage,
gosh, this is such an escalated timeline. And I think that's where I feel like he's not ready now. And he knows it. Like, he's being honest with himself. And I think that's where it's really hard, is like, I think he's genuine in really liking Jenn. And I think he's also genuine in saying like, and I'm not ready to get married. Like, if this were a different show and they could just leave and be together, or maybe just live together, or like, then we might have a different outcome. Like, I might be able to say something different, but like, I don't think it would help him fulfill his life's purpose sooner if he were to get married or engaged now. I don't think that would get him to where he wants to go in, again, building a life for his future family that's different than his. So
yeah, I think one of the only shocks this episode was that the way they were narrating Marcus, that he didn't self-eliminate.
Yeah.
It really actually felt like that's the direction that this was going to take.
Yeah.
The only really other note, because it wasn't a lot here. We were meeting with friends and stuff like that, but obviously there's not a lot of family. The one family is the sister.
Yeah.
And she, kind of exactly what you'd expect, seemed really guarded, very stoic, not a lot of emotion out of her either. Again, sort of what you kind of expect given the backstory. It felt like she maybe tried to give Jenn some reassurance, but it just felt like, was her name Gabby? I think it was Gabby, right? I think it's pretty clear that Gabby is not not necessarily an emotional one, and not necessarily the person you're going to lean on as an outsider. You're going to lean on to provide for you, sort of emotional support. And not that that's her job or anything like that, but it just didn't feel like she was the right person to give Jenn what Jenn was looking for in that moment. And so it all felt...
No, she was being protective of her brother.
Sure. Yeah.
And as someone who's grown up in the experience that she and Marcus has, like, yeah, that's what you do. That's what you've learned. That's how they survived.
Protect each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Literally survived. So, I think if anything, like, Marcus is such a great example of, like, especially in experiencing, traumatic upbringing, like, it is so risky to form and build connections with other people. Like, and I think that's why I get so frustrated every time there's this emphasis of like, need to get Marcus to open up more. And it's like, he's been doing a lot, like, and he's probably getting so flooded with all of this, like, for someone who's so guarded on this show. Like, again, I know I said this last week, and that's where I'm like, again, kind of protective of Marcus, kind of not surprised that he's melting down a little bit, is he is having to talk about and face these things that it seems like he hasn't really had a big opportunity to do, or has allowed himself to do. And I'm feeling for him a lot. So it's kind of like in all of those ways, yes, he's not ready. But I'm having a lot of empathy for Marcus.
Yep. I hear you. I like Marcus a lot. I hope eventually he's one of our bachelors, but I also hope that Jenn does not pick him, because he's not ready at this point.
Yeah. I think Jenn really, I think
she wants,
wants it to be him.
In a lot of ways, similar to Jonathan, but more so.
Yeah.
Like, I think she really wants to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
Similar to how she was trying to find a way to get there at Sam M.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, I don't think the bridge has been built yet. Right. Forget about finding a path. I think that there's a whole bridge that's missing right there.
Yeah.
At this moment.
Yeah. No.
So real quick summation. I think that Devin's date was the only one that I would list as really positive, and I thought it went about as good as you could hope. I think that of the remaining three, Jeremy's was clearly the worst, but Jonathan's, and Marcus's, neither one of them were particularly good either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was one great hometown and three that were at best mediocre, to really kind of negative. Not a great percentage if you're Jen.
No, not great. And we kind of see that preview to us for next week's episode.
Yeah.
That like a lot is kind of shaky and up in the air. And
yeah, I mean, here's the problem I have is it's sort of like in many ways, it feels like Devin just has to go on and win, because at this point, Marcus is clearly not ready. And Jonathan is only ready because his mom said, yeah, she's the one. And Devin's the only one of the three remaining who's like, I'm in it. And this is my opinion. And sure, my family agrees, but like, I'm here for you. And I'm in it because I believe that you're the right one.
Well, and I have to wonder, like, how much of Jen being into Devin is because Devin's into Jen.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it's not how much of that influences her decision making,
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling like
Devin's pretty fucking cool.
I mean, I love Devin. Devin's great, but I'm more saying like he is in a totally different category
of all these others.
These others. And so like, again, like I have to question how that impacts Jen's perception of her feelings, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism of Jen. If anything, again, that's more empathy to Jen and how confusing this must be for her. Speaking of Jen, I need to give Jen, I know we're not quite at Rose and Thorn yet, but I need to shout Jen out because another good week for Jen in a very specific way. Okay. So as we expect at these hometowns, people ask the question, what do you like about my insert here? Son, brother, friend, whatever. And what do we often see as a way that people answer this question?
Oh, a lot of times it's usually how they make me feel, right? It's, what have they done for me? It's the narcissistic sort of point of view. Or the other one is, really attractive, great eyes, Yes, right. Kind of superficial or selfish. Yeah.
And Jen was able to give deep, clearly she knows these men, she knows them as individuals. She was able to give meaty kind of answers to this question. We
as meaty as Jonathan's thighs.
Yes.
I was wondering where the rest of his shorts were. And then I saw his thighs. I'm like, oh, I guess if I had thighs like that, I would not wear pants either.
His thighs they might get my rose, honestly. But no, I really appreciated that. And it made me feel like these connections are genuine for her. She really is here. Here in it for them. She has genuine feelings for them. Are they as deep as she's portraying them to us or to the audience, whatever? Probably not, but she clearly has shown up and gotten to know these men and is not. We have criticized her for making everything about herself and centering herself in every conversation. She did not do that. And
second week in a row, she had a good week in terms of, being a little less selfish and seeing other people's
self-centered.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Okay.
All right. So we do get something new, which I got to say, I love this. We got a little guys meet up at the bar.
Yep.
Had a very Love is Blind sort of feel to it. I dug this.
Me too.
The fact that these four guys also are all buddies. They're all good guys. They're all stand-up guys. They all clearly like and respect each other. That being said, this was not necessary. It added zero value to the show. We learned nothing here.
At 9/11, I had said okay, hometowns are over. What the fuck is what's going to go down?
Yeah.
And
nothing went down.
Well, and you alluded to this earlier. Okay, they're having this guy chat and we're seeing Marcus sit there like a deer in the headlights. We're hearing his inner monologue.
He must be self-eliminating.
Yeah. And then he didn't. And so I don't know what that was about. I didn't mind it. I'd like more of that.
Let me tell you something. Conceptually, I really liked it. I like, and I know it's still produced or whatever, but get these guys out into a bar, let them have a couple of drinks, let them just chat for a little bit and let them forget that the cameras are on them for a few minutes and just be themselves, a little bit more genuine. And the fact that this is a good group to do it with, because these guys are all stand-up guys. They're all respectable guys. They like each other. So, they're not going to get into any shit. It's just going to be a good experience. And so I dug it. I actually really like this, even though in this particular case, no value added.
Yeah.
Zero value added. Learn nothing new. All it did was give Marcus an opportunity to spiral out, but we already knew that's where he was at anyway. Yeah. So production, more of this, but not exactly this.
But push the plot forward.
Push the plot forward. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so then we do get into the rose ceremony. They're back in LA.
Most anticlimactic rose ceremony ever.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
What was worse, Jeremy with no socks?
Oh.
Or Jonathan with the socks?
Jonathan with the socks was way worse than Jeremy with the socks.
It was so bad. So bad. I was like, Jeremy, put some socks on, dude. And then Jonathan, I'm like, Jonathan, give Jeremy your socks, please. Like, what is going on here? This is awful.
Yeah.
Like,
neither were great looks.
Oh my God.
But Jonathan, it was like distracting.
It was so bad. Yeah.
He's got great legs though. So
Jonathan? Mm-hmm. But if you had legs like that, you think you would have gone the Jeremy route and wear less.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
Jeremy
know what was
basically
going on there.
wearing capris with loafers, right? He was showing off some calf there. And but Jonathan, he's got like extra layers on. I didn't get any of it. It was
there must have been a reason for it.
So the other
he's
thing
usually
like
pretty stylish too. So maybe there was like a practical reason.
Well, so I don't know if you caught this or not, but the 3 guys, no tie, 1 guy with tie. Mm-hmm. That bugs me because I really don't like the business casual thing. I want us all to go back in corporate America to going back to wearing shirts and ties every single day. And
no suit, no ties, very in.
Yeah, it should not be very in. It's just like a lazy look. Like put a damn tie on. And so
I sometimes think the tie is too uptight. I like I think it's hot. I like the depending on the occasion. Men look really good in a jacket. I'd rather a jacket than a tie.
You should be wearing both.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Jeremy, the only one wearing a tie. So
your boy.
Yeah. So
he's also like closer to our age than.
Is that true?
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's in his 30s.
Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I did note there was only 1 tie, and that was the one that got eliminated. Not saying there's saying that there's any correlation there. Just saying that there's causation. There was correlation there potentially, but not necessarily causation. But yeah. So wardrobe also. While we're banging on wardrobes, Jenn's wardrobe. I am a huge fan of Jenn's wardrobe. I'm on the record. She wears stuff that I would ask you to wear. Like it's super cute stuff, but I don't think there was a single thing she wore this episode that I thought was cute. It was a bad wardrobe episode across the board for the guys and for Jenn. Not a great episode.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I also feel like she didn't know where they were going and what they were doing, so it's probably hard to plan. So again, I'm gonna be empathetic to Jenn. I'm not a fan of like this signature fur wrap thing that she's doing.
That Jesse's like, give me that.
It's overdone at this point.
Yeah.
So when they're in Hawaii next week, I better not see it.
Yeah, it's not a great place for a fur wrap.
Yeah.
All right. So without further ado, rose ceremony. We already all know Jeremy goes home. Mm-hmm. They have a quick walkout, and he says exactly. They say exactly what they're supposed to say. There's nothing insightful or interesting here. They just both say what they're supposed to say to have good edits on the way out. I don't even. Yeah. That's it.
It was pretty anticlimactic.
Yep.
It was a good sport. It's kind of like, all right, you're in good hands.
Yep.
See ya.
Yeah. And again, I don't think anybody.
You could tell there was no love lost there. Like they're good.
Yep. Exactly.
Probably good friends.
Yeah, exactly. So, and with that is the episode.
Yeah, so we have Jonathan, Marcus, and Devin advancing to Fantasy Suite / overnights in Hawaii.
And next week we're getting 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Which Monday and Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to figure that out. But before we get into those details, shall we go on to Rose and Thorn?
Yeah. What do you got?
I'm happy you asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. All right. So look, at my rose, I love the guy meet up at the bar.
Mhm.
I want more of that. I want less of them in the mansion. I want less of them doing the stupid pool parties. I want more like candidy type stuff.
Yeah, seemingly like organic.
Like I hate when it's like, there's 2 one-on-one dates and there's a group date, and the 2 one-on-one guys are Sam and Devin, and production's like, hey, you guys are going to go sit in the living room and stare at each other for an hour until eventually we get something to record. I hate that shit. Yeah. Like I like it to be more organic and less heavy-handed. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the advantages to a show like Love is Blind is they really set up more of these more organic-y feeling, whether they're heavily produced still, but they have more of those organic type of things. And so I would like to see more of that. And I was happy to see it this episode. What's your rose?
My rose is going to Devin's mom. I know we talked about it a bunch during the Devin date, but I really appreciated the balance that she struck of being a single mom, being someone that's like still like a romantic despite, having struggles. I liked the way that she checked her son. It felt like, again, a way that she was caring for Jenn and caring for Devin all at once. I felt like I get how Devin is the way that he is because of you. Mm-hmm. And so she gets my rose this week.
Nice. So there's no surprise here. My thorn is the sock-based attire in the rose ceremony. It was so off-putting. It was so distracting. I'm not sure I heard any of Jenn's intro. I'm not sure I actually watched anybody get a rose. I was just so just distracted, put out by the high water, whatever you call them, high watered pants with the no sock loafer look, and then Jonathan with his like white athletics. It was just a miss everywhere.
I had a similar thorn, which was something that was very distracting and a turnoff to me, which was when Jeremy and Jenn were at Stu's and they were like Lady in the Tramping the lobster roll.
Yeah.
That's not a food that should be shared in that way.
Are there any foods that should be Lady in the Tramp?
Probably no.
Twizzler, maybe? No?
I guess it's like it's rubber. So like there's no disgustingness that necessarily needs to happen, but like a chunky, as they defined it, chunky lobster roll. No.
Have we in 17 years, have we ever Lady in the Tramp anything?
No, and I'm good with that.
Are you sure?
Am I sure I don't want to, or am I sure that we haven't?
I think is there anything?
I'm not into cheesy shit like that.
You are not into cheesy shit. No. I tried to match my swim trunks to your bikini on vacation, and you damn near threw me off.
It was so embarrassing.
People thought we were modeling the resort swimwear.
It was so embarrassing.
Oh, we look so good. How else would people going to know we're together?
Because we're together.
I mean, how do you know? I was off playing volleyball. How would they know? Right? Like, oh, look at that single lady over by the pool. Look at that. Mm. Yeah. Oh, no. Look at the bikini smash.
There was another couple that was like really matching.
Yeah.
We didn't discuss them.
They were real matching.
Really matching. That day I wanted to go inside and wear the opposite color of you when I saw them show up, and I was like, oh no, we are not the same.
I need to get a purple and a pink one so that I can match you all the time.
Okay, we're having two very different views of what needs to happen next.
I got all of them. I got the lime green, I got the white, I got the cobalt blue. I got them all except for I don't have the pink and the purple. Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay. So next week we have 2 episodes. Our plan as of now is to record 2 separate episodes, probably recording one immediately after Monday night's episode and recording on Wednesday night for Tuesday night's episode, because I have to go back to Miami on Tuesday night.
Yes.
So you'll see 2 episodes from us next week. But until then, if you want to stay involved with what we've got going on, give us a follow on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can follow me on Instagram at Amy Albero LCSW. Please also, if you haven't already, hit that like button at the bottom of this video and subscribe. Again, it's a small thing that goes a very, very long way and will help us get to that really important goal of 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the comments. We love hearing from you. If you also want to give us any feedback through email, you can email us at reactivitytv@revivecfw.com. We will see you next week. Bye.
See ya.